Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 133 of the Peak of Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, emallson, and joining me, we have my co host, Anomoly,
Hello.
and Pre-Patch this Tuesday. It's been an
Tis
adventure.
upon us. It is upon us.
I pity the few, actually, not the few, the many that raid Tuesday, Wednesday because, oh boy.
It was a rough start to the week, I'll say.
Yeah.
If you rated those 2 days, I mean, Tuesday in general, I think was always going to be bad.
Yeah.
They pushed back. I mean, if you don't remember, I guess you weren't here.
I,
But
I So I saw a little bit of it because all right, so we didn't do podcast last week because I was on vacation. I was in Greece. Greece is 7 hours ahead. At least where I was in Greece was 7 hours ahead of where I live here in the US. So for me, I was like back at my room, just like chilling in bed on my phone at like 3 o'clock. This,
yeah,
local time, my home time, Eastern time, and watching the maintenance get again.
yeah, again and again, yeah. So I think servers came up. I think probably at like 9-ish Eastern, 10-ish Eastern, somewhere in that range, but really weren't stable until like 11:30. Like it
Yeah,
took another hour and a half after they came up for them to like actually
yeah,
stabilize. And it was a typical like just crapshoot. Like everything was broken, UI stuff was broken. Yeah, it was fun. Tuesday got literally nothing done. And then Wednesday, I think they did have another maintenance late, like in the like during the night, I guess, or I guess the evening hours for US.
yeah,
So like if you rated on Wednesday, you got sort of screwed over by some extended maintenance there. And then finally by Thursday, everything seemed to settle out. Some weirdness,
yeah,
we'll say, but in general, seemed to stabilize. So
yeah.
there's a bunch of scaling issues on Wednesday too, actually. Like the
Really?
old certain talents weren't working, or certain
Yeah.
talents were scaled down. Um, I know that ancient teachings. I don't know if it still is. It isn't. I know that, but it was on Wednesday scaled down for Mistweaver.
I
So you
bet
had to wear
Ignite
the
was broken
legendary,
too.
which wasn't. Ignite was Ignite was broken. Ignite and actually, yeah. Actually, I don't know if Ignite was. I know that mob scaling was broken, so the Anduin ads,
Oh no.
one Ignite would kill them in like or like 2 or 3 ticks.
Wait.
Like
Which
this,
ads? The
like
the
when you go
caster
under.
ones? Oh
No,
no.
when you go under,
Oh boy.
like those things, yeah.
Yeah.
So like we had to definitely to adjust our strategy a little bit.
For them just
Which
instantly clearing their ads?
Yeah. Our first pull, we got like 2 or 3 ignite ticks, and like half the bottom group came up, and we were like,
Yeah.
"What is going
Yeah.
on?" So yeah, so it's been fun to raid this week. Like I mean, nothing too crazy, like typical pre-patch stuff. It was just everything was all over the place, but
Yeah.
um, raid was good. We got at least personally, we got our mount runs done. So we got Sylvanas killed and um Jailer killed all within a single night. Took our full raid night though. Took about 4 hours, 3.5 hours to get through it all.
Yeah.
Um, just with like a couple wipes to Anduin, random wipes to other bosses. Jailer surprisingly easy. Sylvanas also fairly easy. Um, but uh, but yeah, um, it
Yeah.
was wasn't too bad. Wasn't
We
too bad.
haven't raided yet. I got back in town last night, so I would have missed our Friday raid even if we had. We just had
Mhm.
7 people, myself included, but 7 people post out on Friday.
Oh Jesus.
And it's just like,
Jesus.
okay, I guess we don't raid. Like there's literally nothing you can do at that point as a raid leader.
Yeah.
Like it, it's not even that like we in theory could have fielded like 20 people
Mhm.
or close to it. We could have like brought it in and made it. But the comp would just be completely screwed. And
Oh yeah.
like what would the point be? Show up for an hour, like knock out Vigilant Guardian and some other early bosses that we don't need to kill anyway? Like what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um
yeah. That's seven's a lot. I wonder if it was like it's Halloween weekend.
I'm guessing it was a
Halloween
little bit of
parties.
Halloween stuff. People
Yeah.
doing Friday Halloween stuff instead of Sunday Halloween stuff because obviously the day after Sunday is Monday, and on Monday you gotta get up and go to work.
Unless you're my family, and then we're still doing Halloween stuff on Monday. I have all my kids' friends coming over, so I have like
Ooh.
20, 25 people at my house tomorrow night. It's gonna be great.
Nice, nice.
Um, but yeah, no, it was sort of typical pre-patch stuff. I mean, the pre-patch is super light in terms of content. I know.
Yeah,
Um, I was so I would tell you I was confused about what exactly is launching because they're doing a two-phased approach here,
yeah,
and so I thought, to be completely honest with you, I thought this phase was like the elemental invasions or like whatever they are coming, and then like the talents and the UI, like that was it.
yeah.
And then like phase two is like the new dungeon or that dungeon thing, Old Duar, do
Uldaman,
remake it older or
Uldaman.
Oldemon, sorry. And then evokers. I thought that was phase two, but
Yeah,
all of the actual content you care about doing is phase two.
yeah,
So this is just UI and talents basically
yeah,
is like the it um in this pre-patch. So there's yeah, it's like getting alts ready and getting UI fixed was like the extent of what to do
yeah,
at this point. So
yeah.
um but
It's
yeah,
speaking actually of getting UI fixed. How is your UI stuff gone?
Phew, fairly okay.
Okay.
So I mean, I get lucky in that my base is elf. So like from an elf perspective, they had pretty much everything working by Thursday when I had to raid. I will tell you though that my raid frame add-on not updated yet. And well,
Ooh,
it works
what do you
except that
use?
I use BD grid. So
Okay.
from Big
Yeah.
Dumb Guild
I used
blue
to use
stuff.
that, and then in Shadowlands, it took them forever to get it updated.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
So
I switched at that point to using the SUF raid frames.
I might have to swap, unfortunately, because I used Elv raid frames for the raid on Thursday, and they are absolutely terrible. Like just I couldn't like debuffs. I maybe it's 'cause I'm to be completely honest with you,
You
I
gotta
didn't
configure
customize them,
it. Yeah.
but it was like actually going in and trying to configure it. At one point, I had like people's just like regular debuffs on my raid frames, like the
Yeah.
Mechagon ring debuff was on there. I'm like, what? And then it took me like 10 minutes to figure out how to remove it because it's like this dumb filtering system where you have to like put in what you
Right.
actually want to see,
Yeah.
and like I'm like I'm over this. So yeah, but yeah, UI now fine. Weak ores are still a little. I mean, weak ores are typically fine. None of the boss weak ores we use, the major ones were broken. So like the jailer ones were
Right.
fine. Like Sylvanas arrows were fine.
That's good to hear actually, because I was asking about that today in our officer chat. Like, has anybody heard of issues with these weak cores? Because I don't want to like we have one raid night, we want to get jailer down. I don't want to
Yeah,
like get to jailer and have all our important weak cores.
I think there was one like interrupt or like soak weak ore that was oh, the stun weak ore on Anduin didn't
Uh,
work. But that's like any like the chain CC one. That one seems pretty innocuous. Everything else, like if you use the big dumb one for lords, the one that vote one, that were perfectly fine. For the Among Us phase, all the jailer stuff. So like the bomb circles, that one all worked.
right.
Had its typical issues of like anytime you update the node, everybody has to reload their UI, or you
Yeah.
get people jumping in the same hole.
Gotta love it.
But yeah, yeah, no, everything else was fine actually week core wise. So
Nice.
um, yeah,
Nice.
it was seemed like I mean to be completely honest with you, to be fair, if I used L frames and had them configured the way I wanted, my UI would have been fine on Thursday with no issues. So
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I was able to mostly convert mine. I did it last night after I got back from the airport and
mhm.
just sat down and like went through it. Um, it was actually kind of nice being late to the first week of pre-patch because most add-ons have been updated already. So I was able to pretty much just like hit update on everything and it worked.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things that didn't. So Dominoes is the action bar add-on that I was using, not been updated. Because they just changed so much. And
Yeah.
like the way that Dominoes worked was like it used the existing action bars instead of like hiding them and hiding them, so it was faster.
Mhm.
Um, and so I don't know if it's getting updated. I ended up replacing it with just the default action bars and then like writing a little bit of custom script to hide the borders on them.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Very
which
cool.
I might just put up as like a little add-on for people to get because that's basically what I use Dominoes for. Is you get like one of the icon packs and then you hide the borders, and that's basically what my Dominoes setup was.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Nice.
I'm actually really happy with how the new UI has turned out overall, though. Like, I'm still using SUF to replace unit frames,
Yeah.
but like action bars, I'm just using the base. I'm actually using the base cast bar for the first time ever.
Oh, yeah, it looks nice. Yeah.
Because the cast bar add-on I was using didn't get updated. Uh,
Mhm.
actually hasn't been updated since 9.1, so
Probably
may
gonna
not
break
be getting
anyway.
updated.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think the main issues I've had are uh, like UI taint issues. Where I actually had one in a key today.
Cool.
When we were like queuing for a group, it popped up and said, RC loot cancel has attempted to do whatever forbidden thing while we're joining a group. And it's like, whatever. And then we get into a key and I try and push Fleshcraft. And it says RC Loot Council has been prevented from, or not RC Loot
Oh,
Council,
no.
Raider IO has been prevented from performing a protected action. And it's like, oh, I guess I have to reload my UI because I can't cast spells.
Oh, man. That's
Um,
funny.
but yeah, it's actually worked like fairly well. Nameplates
Nice.
work, cores are working, details works, weak auras actually work. I don't have any super complicated fancy weak auras, but uh, they all work. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, no, yeah, it was surprisingly quick for I mean, I know there was a ton of changes. So I know a lot of like the dev folks or a lot of the UI
Yeah,
developers, there is a lot of stuff. I think the week or guys were pretty vocal about like there's just a lot that gets changed here.
yeah.
Um,
There's a
but
lot of internal stuff that gets changed. Like I know, so
right.
I have a custom nameplate add-on, and part of that is I do aura handling. Part of that, the nameplate system is actually one of the least changed systems overall. Like most of
Mhm.
the add-on didn't need to change basically at all for 10.0, but the aura stuff all got changed, and so I had very like clean and efficient implementations of it with the old aura system, and now I needed to convert it to the new aura system, and that took a little bit of time, but it honestly wasn't that bad. But then you like my island is like fairly small, and I'm the only person that you not even so like
Right, right.
it's only for me. Um, and then you think about like doing that on the scale of something like Weak Auras that has tens of millions of downloads or hundreds of millions
Oh
of
yeah.
downloads. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, it can be intense for sure. So, but no, it hasn't been. I mean, other than the tons of downtime and the interesting scaling, which I think is, I think we always see some scaling issues in pre patches anyway. Hasn't been too bad of a first
actually,
week.
question for you as well. I've been hearing that the boss HP relative to our damage now is lower. Like people are doing either more damage or the boss HP is lower, some combination of the two. Kill times are faster. I heard a bunch of people saying that like Anduin is just strictly like one phase now. Uh,
Yeah, that is true. I think though the other thing is this week was very good affix wise.
okay.
So like Anduin was, I think Anduin's moats and barrier.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, and they both spawn right before the intermission, so you
Right.
can get barrier on the ad and him. So I think it's a combination of I think you are doing more damage relative to boss HP, but at the same time, y- like this week was very favorable in terms of affixes
Yeah.
for any of the boss. I think we had there was dispels on Rygalon, I want to say, or
Lords, I
is
heard.
this or Lord, sorry, yeah, one of those,
Yeah.
which was like the only bad one.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was pretty easy. So I think Affix is really good. And the other thing too is I think player HP went up. Like I'm sitting at almost 100k hit points,
That
and
sounds
I don't.
normal. My mage had like
Oh,
with
oh, is
with
it?
fort my mage was at like 97.
Okay. I don't remember being that high. But I, to be fair, never look at my actual raw HP
Right.
number. So,
Yeah, my mage
um,
was at like 97k at eye level like
okay,
301.
okay, then that checks out. Then that's pretty consistent. Then I'm at like 304 and at like 98k, I think.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, so I mean, bosses definitely died quick. Like Anduin, we actually killed Anduin. We could well, our DPS was a little better. We would have killed Anduin before the explosions went off in the final phase.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, so we were like half a second or a couple seconds short of that.
Yeah.
There's a couple of speed kills on Sylvanas. Like I think we actually we actually pushed Sylvanas before the actually when we killed her, we pushed her before the veil that happens before the third arrows. So
Oh
like
man.
yeah, so like yeah, we were crushing her in terms of damage. But again, it was also moats, and I
Right.
think she was moats and interrupts. So
I had forgotten about affixes until you brought it up. I
yeah,
really
yeah,
had. And that
yeah,
just like I think the lesson I hope that they take from season 4 is that these affixes are just not very fun. Like I hate
I
it. I
I
I was
think
actually looking way more forward to raiding tonight until I remembered that there are affixes, and then it's just like, oh, I have to deal with that.
yeah, and I think like moats is fun as an affix. Like the ones that are just pure power increases for like things you're already doing, I think are
Yeah,
fine.
I think barrier is the one that I'm like, this is okay.
Yeah, barrier
Moat
makes sense. Yeah,
moats is one where like it either breaks the fight in half because you have the whole raid getting like 80% damage increase or extended periods of time,
yeah,
or it's completely useless because you can't stack it up and you just have to find a way to click it somewhere um, to avoid dying. And then
yeah.
like the kick one and the spell one are just awful, awful.
Yeah, the spell one in particular, because like especially on lords where you have to like dispel at certain times, you're dispelling into like clear
Yeah.
circles or even like the green circles coming in.
And then if you
So
dispel during the swarm, you literally can't soak it.
yeah, because it's yeah raised up now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, affixers are great.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
uh, that's something like I would like them to do more like revamping older raids and bringing them up. I do not want them to do affixes ever again in raid. As long as they're going to
yeah,
continue designing bosses that are like these tightly tuned machines, they can't do random affixes. I don't think, or they have
yeah,
to be like extremely simple, like barrier.
yeah, yeah. Because I think well, like barrier, or I mean, the other thing they could do is just like add like tactically add a new thing you have to do in the fight. That like
Yeah,
if you do it well, you get a power increase. If you don't do it well, you get like no increase or
yeah,
like there's no negative to it,
right.
right? Like it's basically like a something you can interact with if you
Yeah,
want, or it's
like
just the same fight over and over again.
we're
So
kind of off on the tangent a little bit, but
yeah,
like the so corruption in Nilotha was literally like affixes that you as an
right, yeah,
individual, not as a raid, but as an individual, and they deliberately simplified the bosses to make that be the case. Like you got to opt into more mechanics, but the baseline bosses did not have as many mechanics. Um, so you had room to do that, and like that showed on something um, like Addon had more mechanics than something like Vexiona, which was another Endwing boss.
hmm yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's I guess yeah, I guess it kind of is that. I don't know. Maybe they do a corruption like system in the next like the
No.
final season. Well, I mean, like you individually. Well, no, because then I know my DPS players are idiots. So it's literally going to be like they opt in for all the positives along with all the negatives, and then yell when they die.
Yeah, yeah.
So, oh man.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into it. So we talked a little bit about pre-patch already, which I think is cool. There's a couple things that I think came out last week that are more focused on Dragonflight versus like the beta versus pre-patch itself. Um, so I wanted to go through a couple of those things, and then we can sort of talk a little bit more in depth on pre-patch because I think there's some. Well, I guess we've already talked a lot about pre-patch already, but we'll figure out what we're going to talk about. Let's just sort of go through some of these things that have come out over the past week. We'll make this a little sort of a grab bag episode today.
yeah.
Um, so I guess the first thing is Blizzard has increased your total character count to 60. So from 50 to 60, you now create up to 60 characters, which seems absolutely crazy to me.
Yeah.
that you would need that many characters. I literally play 2 at this point. So I
I
don't.
I have a bunch of old characters because I've like moved servers several times, and I have old alts on old servers, and I think I'm at like 30
Yeah,
from
I
a decade of playing.
yeah, I probably have roughly that. So funnily enough, most of my characters are literally just level 1 characters where I've reserved a cool name. So, like, I think at this point, well, this might be the expansion I have the most max level characters in a while. I've got all healers at max, which is surprising.
Wow, look at you. I did
Yeah,
not.
I'm kind of a
I
baller.
had more characters. I mean, the expansion I had the most at max was definitely Legion. I did all of the mage towers except for mage and one other. I remember what other one. I did all except for two classes. Um, so I
I
had,
only did 2 classes. I
I,
did the hunter one and the monk ones.
yeah. But then in like BFA, I actually had a bunch of 120s as well. I have actually had way fewer this expansion. I didn't even get all of the tanks level 60. I did not. I
Gotcha.
never got my bear or demon.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this before. I just have a problem with alts and that, like, I guess the even pre I like to blame it on artifact power or those sort of like power
Right.
grindy systems is like I want to be behind, but I'll tell you, even before they were a thing, like in MOP and BFA or sorry, WAD, I only played my monk.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't play many other characters. Although this expansion, like God, I say this every time, but I think I might actually do it this one. I think I'm gonna actually try and maintain 2 characters like at similar levels of progression.
Yeah.
The monk for sure, and then one other healer, which I don't know yet, but um I think that's gonna be my play. But now if you run if you want more characters, you have 10 more slots. It's actually this is live now.
Yeah.
Um so yeah.
This is
And
technically a
then
pre-patch change.
yeah, it's more pre I did not do the notes very well today. Yeah, and I guess the other thing too, along with this, is we talk about character slots, is they did update the character race combinations. So for rogue, mage, and priest, now every race can be a rogue, a mage, or a priest. Following the footsteps of warriors and like death knights, right?
Yeah.
Um, so you can now, I mean, the big one there, of course, is like the Tauren and High Mountain Tauren rogues, right?
Yeah.
Like that just
And
seems ridiculous.
Draenei rogues are same thing. Just like
Oh yeah,
the ones with hooves, rogues with hooves now.
it's true.
Mr. Blackwell in chat is saying apparently there are people that farm some seasonal event daily/weeklies on 50 chart characters for very rare drops. That is true. I don't personally know anybody that does it on that many characters for the very rare drops, but there's a guy in our guild that does like mount farming on a ton of characters in order to get the like super rare stuff.
Yeah.
Not 50,
Yeah.
but a lot.
To be honest with you, I used to do that with Invincible and what's the Mimiron's head one? But I only did it on like 4 or 5
Mimiron's head.
characters. Yeah, sorry, the Yogg Saron Zero Light.
Oh, Yogg Zero one, yeah.
Yeah. Um and so I got Invincible, which is awesome. I have not gotten Mim's head, and I've just stopped trying. Like maybe
Yeah.
once every 2 weeks, I'll
Yeah.
run it on one character. I'm like, I can't. This is mind-numbingly boring. So, but in any
Yeah.
event, new character and race combinations. High Mountain Torrent actually make out like bandits here. They get rogues, mages, and priests, which I think is pretty cool. And then orc priests come in. I didn't realize orcs couldn't be priests.
That is
I'll be
actually
completely
really
honest with you.
weird.
Um, but yeah. So now you can get more, I guess, choice in terms of what race you are.
So wait,
Um,
in classic, what horde races could be beasts? Is
it
it
was
just
undead.
undead
Undead.
and trolls?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because Tauren priests were not a thing in
Right.
classic. They were later. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's funny. Tauren priests got in before orc priests, which is funny. Because Tauren priests were like what a couple expansions ago, I want to say. Um, so yeah. But yeah, it was just undead and trolls. Yeah. Because there was only 4 races back then. So um, any event, new combinations. Speaking of new combinations, that's a terrible segue into the next
This is not
story.
a good segue.
Nah, I'm just gonna end it there. Blizzard is removing the Threads of Fate system, which is, you remember, that is the Shadowlands sort of alt leveling experience where instead of leveling through the story of Shadowlands, you basically just go to zones and do like world quests or quests in zones to fill up a bar, and then you get a bunch of XP.
All right. So
Um,
hot take here. There's a bunch of people that are butt mad on Reddit about this. Bunch of people. They're all wrong.
yeah,
Threads of
I
Fate
agree.
just Threads of Fate does not make any sense after Shadowlands goes away, because Threads of Fate did two things. Number one, it let you at level 60 not have to finish the Shadowlands campaign. No matter at which point you picked up the Threads of Fate thing, it let you skip the rest of the campaign your second time through. And that is
Yep.
something that you won't have to complete the Shadowlands campaign in Dragonflight.
Yeah.
So that purpose no longer exists. The second thing that it did is it allowed you to immediately jump into dungeon farming for leveling
Hmm.
through the 50 to 60 area. You didn't have to go through the zones and unlock the different dungeons and everything. You could just like jump right into it and get going. Another thing that you can just immediately do in Dragonflight, you don't have to, pick Threads of Fate in order to do that.
Right.
Um, and it is actually worth noting that it was always slower by a lot to do the Threads of Fate just like out in the zones doing quests. It was massively slower than doing the campaign or doing dungeons. So that said, there's an argument for like maybe somebody like that was how they liked to level, but you can't do world quests. But since you don't actually have to complete the campaign anymore, you can just do the campaign and go through all the side quests now while you're in the campaign areas. You don't like the side quests are all unlocked during the campaign. You don't have to do the campaign to unlock
Hmm.
them, except for like unlocking the zone itself, which is like maybe the one thing. Like you can't go and do like I'm going to do the Revendreth side quest to level. You have to actually get to the Revendreth point in the campaign, by which point you're probably close to level 60 anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And that. Oh, sorry.
but yeah, like the final thing that it is it's variety. It is like you could just jump in and do Revendreth, right? Um, but with Chromie Time, you can pick from any of the expansions to go through for leveling. I don't feel like the variety argument is particularly strong there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the other thing. Yeah, is they did add Shadowlands to Chromie time, so you can now, I guess, level 10, you can start leveling in Shadowlands. Um, which is cool. Chromie time's interesting. I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah,
In like the probably two characters I've taken through and actually leveled, like using it once, like since it's been in. It's been really fun to like just pick your expansion, like
yeah,
because at a certain point I think we've talked about it, you just get done with doing like vanilla and then doing TBC and then
yeah.
like slowly grinding your way through it. And really all you want to get
Doing
to is WAD.
the first zone of every expansion.
Yeah, it's just oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um and all you really want to do is go to WAD and farm treasures, right? Like that's the goal.
Did they
And you can just
also
start there.
nerfed that during Shadowlands, didn't they? You no longer
Uh
get such huge amounts of XP for that.
I believe they did, but the problem still is that WAD has those bonus XP events
Yeah,
and or like areas, and so like in terms of like questing plus those, I think WAD's still considered like the
yeah.
most efficient.
Uh, so
Um,
I will say that if you are a like fairly casual leveler, like you're not really doing speed leveling stuff,
mhm,
Shadowlands is actually probably going to be one of the fastest options. Campaign gives a very good amount of XP,
yeah,
and it's very efficiently laid out. I don't think it's super fun to go through multiple times. I honestly got kind of bored with it the first time through. But
yeah,
the in terms of like XP, it is for the amount of effort that you have to put in thinking about what you're doing versus the amount of XP it gets, it's pretty far up there. Like in
yeah,
terms of like brain power per XP.
yeah. It's very much on rails, which is nice. So um, it makes it easy. But yeah, so now I mean with Chromie Time and Shadowlands. You can level however you want. And yeah, the Threads of Fate, I mean, I agree with everything you said there. It's whatever. It was something that needed to be done in expansion for your alts, and like I don't think it has a place,
Yeah,
after we leave. So
yeah,
I will say they did mention Adventure Time, which is not the TV show, but the or maybe it's a podcast. Anyway, Adventure Time is Dragonflight's version of Threads of Fate. I think I don't actually know how they're implementing it. It is slightly different than what Threads of Fate did. And Blizzard already sort of got in front of it and said like Threat or Adventure Time and Dragonflight will be sticking around longer term. And probably folded into Chromie Time in some way where it makes sense in
yeah.
terms of like how you level. So
And that might be something
um
that they do as well going forward, is being like you can pick an expansion and then ignore the campaign entirely, because you can do that in BFA pretty
yep.
much. Technically, there's like the zone campaigns that you're kind of doing, but you don't do the war campaign. The campaign.
Hmm.
You don't do the war campaign. You just go to the zone and do the quests.
Yeah, which is like easy.
Yeah.
Get Azerite or Azeroth autopilot and just click your way to
Right.
victory.
Yep.
So, all right, cool. Moving on to more sort of old content, which we really want to talk about. Blizzard did enable Legion raids to have the legacy damage buff, which I
This.
am so freaking excited about, dude. Like, sorry. So Legion is some of the later mythic bosses in Legion. I missed progressing on, so I missed our progression, whatever the Argus raid was.
Yeah, and Taurus.
So yeah, in Taurus. So I missed the later half of that. And so there's a couple items I like to, transmog. I hate the actual system, but like sometimes you just want to look good, and so I sort of want to get that. So it was always awful to farm transmog in those raids because there's a couple of fights, namely Agrimar, where you needed more than one person.
Yes, because
Um,
only one person sends you flying off the platform
yeah,
so fast that
yeah,
you actually cannot transcend back.
yeah. And
It
I
puts
think
you
it
out
happens.
of range before it will let you click the button. It's very, very fast.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But now they've essentially buffed your damage ridiculously, similar to damage buffs you'd get in other older raids. All the Legion raids now have that enabled, so you can go in and basically just cleave everything very quickly.
Yeah.
So for you transmog chasers or mount chasers, actually, because there's a bunch of mounts in these raids too.
Yep.
Um, Legion raids are now easier than ever. You probably should be able to solo everything at that point through them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's like,
which is nice.
speaking of mounts, there's obviously like the Argus mount and
Hmm.
the Kill Jaden mount. And Dan have a mount, or was it just the mount?
Gul'dan had him out. He had the Infernal. He
Right.
had two
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
He had the Mythic Infernal, and then there's a rant like a low 1% drop Infernal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Different
yeah,
color.
that he could
Okay.
drop. Yeah, yeah,
Um, so there's those, but there's also like Fellhounds in Antorus has a mount drop.
yep.
I want to say there's a second one in Doom, but I don't remember what it is. Maybe I'm
It
misremembering.
was the Naga boss, right? Sister
Yeah,
something or
yes,
Mistress
Mr.
something.
Sajin,
I think she dropped an eel like mount, I believe.
maybe, or maybe I'm mixing it up with one of the like hidden mounts, because there was also the like Mind Eater whatever mount that had the maze that everybody hated.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that stuff.
Or sorry, I say everybody
Um,
hated. Everybody complained about, but it was very cool. Like hated in the like they complained about it because they had to actually like their brains. They couldn't just go
yeah,
and do it. Um,
yeah. And I just confirmed, Mistress did drop the Abyss Worm mount.
okay, okay,
Sazine, whatever her name was. Um, but yeah, no, it's cool if you're a mount. Like to me, that's I don't know. Like, well, I'm always mean about transmog. I think transmog is a system in general we could do without. I get why people like it. I definitely use it, even though I say I don't. The real reason to do those is for mounts. Like mounts are the coolest thing ever, in my mind. So personal opinion.
uh,
Um,
speaking of damage multipliers, we got some further changes to Thundering this
oh
week
yes.
on the beta. So this has gone through a number of iterations, and actually, I complained a lot about Thundering last time around, but I actually think that the changes that they've made this time have addressed most of the problems that I had with it. Caveat, but most of the complaints.
Gotcha. So, I'm sorry.
The first change that they made to it is that the marks now give a 30% damage increase instead of a 15% damage increase. They nerfed the stun duration from 5 seconds to 4 seconds. That is after previously nerfing it from 8 to 5, which happened last week, but we didn't podcast last week. And then technically there's a buff to the amount of damage that you take from the dot that you have while you're stunned. It's the same amount of damage over 4 seconds instead of 5, if I remember. So, but now it is also all 5 people get the buff. And if you don't have anybody to clear with, you don't get stunned. Which also means that if all 5 people get it applied to them, and then somebody dies, and you're left with like 2 positive marks, neither of those 2 people get stunned because there's no one for them to clear with.
Yep.
And that's actually, I think, a very clean way of solving that problem, like the Anduin problem of 1 person dying, meaning that like 4 people die now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great. I mean, I think 2 things. Number 1, it's great that you now have 5 people get it, so everybody gets to participate in sort of like the damage or healing increase part of the buff, right? Which is nice. And then yeah, the fact that if you're the only buff remaining, not getting stunned at the end, I think is a really good change because um that was always that was like the one issue is like from a mechanic perspective, basically you'd get all your DPS stuff to deal with it every time it came out. And then the old way where it was only 4 people getting it, it was either your tank or your healer would have to, quickly realize if they had to deal with this or not, right? And so now with everybody getting it, you can sort of choose like, okay, does the healer need more healing at this point? Or do we put it in our tank just to do more damage, right? Like the DPS are going to be the ones that want to clear theirs for sure. And so actually, to be fair, nowadays, now I guess it doesn't really matter how you clear, right?
Yeah.
All 5 people getting it, it's just clear whenever there's like 2 or 3 seconds left on the debuff. And,
Yeah.
as long as everybody clears that can clear, you shouldn't get stunned. So
Yeah.
no, it's
What
oh, sorry.
what it'll probably evolve into is effectively let the tank not get cleared in a lot of cases, just to avoid issues with frontals and things. That'll
Yeah.
probably be like in organized groups. That's not going to be the case. You're gonna think about it a little bit more. But in pugs, I expect pugs to do 2 things. 1, I expect them to clear ASAP, and 2, I expect them to not clear the tank because of frontals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but you couple this along with the change they made, what was it, last week, I think, too, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, which was the fact that it now has a range on it. The stun has a range on it. So if your debuff expires and there's no one within 100 yards of you, which is sort of what you meant when
Yeah.
you said you can clear them, but this also would happen if you're running back.
Right.
You don't get stunned. So like if you're running back and you get the one of the debuffs on you and no one's within 100 yards of you, then you don't get stunned when it expires, which is really really nice
Yeah.
from that regard. So um, so I was doing some timings too. It looks like it's about every like minute and a half or so, minute 15
Right.
while you're in combat. So it's not too frequent. It seems like the timer only occurs when you're in combat. So about once a minute, every 90 seconds, somewhere in there, you'll have to deal with this, which is not too bad,
Interesting
25.
thing. So they added this change as well this week. Enemies have 5% more health in a Thundering Keystone. If you perfectly min-max these marks, what's the damage increase that the group gets? It's 30% every 15, like 30% for 15 seconds every 90 seconds.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking at like 15% of 30% or something. No,
Right.
it's actually higher than that. Somebody else did the math if I can find it. Actually, screw it.
I'm just gonna Google it. Love it.
uh Uh, it works out to, if you perfectly min max it, perfectly max it, it would be a 21% damage buff. If you don't perfectly min max it, like if you get half the value of it, all right, I did something. Oh, I know what I did. Yeah, okay. If you perfectly min max it, it's a 5% damage buff.
Yeah. So they just like, yeah, negated, like
Yeah,
thundering basically. Yeah.
yeah.
Which
Which
is,
I don't like.
mm,
I don't like it all.
yeah.
Because you're not, in practice, you're not perfectly min maxing.
Yeah.
Almost never. So this just actually adds health uh to the mobs as a one-time thing. Kind of. It doesn't contribute to scaling as much as if they buffed the base mob HP by 5%.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still like, when people ask for a
Yeah.
kiss curse affix, they mean something like this. You have this stun, and the swirlies are still there, right?
Yep.
And as compensation, you have this damage buff that you get to play around with.
Mm-hmm.
Having it be that you are net neutral if you perfectly optimize playing around this buff,
Yep.
that's just bad.
Yeah. No, and yeah. I mean,
That's
I would
not kiss
agree.
curse, that's just curse.
You're just basically increasing the amount of damage you need to do regardless. Um, I'm wondering if this is sort of like the start of them adding more tuning knobs, I guess you could say, in terms of like the affix is basically a lot like having that, because typically like these sort of seasonal affixes didn't have a mob, like they would have an impact on the way you would do the mobs, so they wouldn't actually impact the mobs themselves. They wouldn't
Right.
increase health or increase damage, right? It was
Yeah.
like they essentially just make them more difficult to deal with, right? Or you have to deal with something very specific. So, um, yeah, this, I mean, this is, it's an, maybe that's how they're sort of going to, another, just essentially adding it now so they can use it as a balancing knob later.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that I guess we can sort of talk a little bit about this. They are doing a massive amount of just dungeon tuning in general, not just the affixes, but all the different
Yeah.
mobs, spells, abilities. I mean, things are getting buffed, nerfed. It's like, it's all
Yeah.
over the place.
Coupled with that, actually this weekend there is this weekend, right? All the dungeons are available for Mythic Plus testing on beta.
I don't know if it's all of them. They added 3 new ones, and I don't know if I don't think they took any away. And was there 5 available
I'm
previously
not
for
sure.
testing?
I was
Yeah. But no,
I
and
was
I
I was
too,
out of town.
I have not logged into beta this week. I can tell you that. So I know they did add 3 new dungeons. I've heard a bunch of feedback on particularly like the Nokon defensive um being just ridiculously overtuned.
Yeah.
Um And like and overtuned in terms of not only like the damage it does, but also like the amount of trash you have to clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is like considered like very, a lot of that community is like it's just annoying to do that one. It's super cool because I think that's the one where you get to fly around on your dragon, so you can use some dragon riding stuff, but um, it's just very very annoying. So
So there is
um,
one change from all of these changes that I would like to highlight that will actually make sense to people that played Legion, and that is in Halls of Valor. There is a nerf to God King Scovald's charge, uh, that reduces the uh, so reduces the initial damage by like 25%, 20%.
mhm.
It's a pretty sizable number. That is a very one-shotty ability, or was a very one-shotty ability in Legion, and it had this really awkward timer where it's a cleave, so it will hit things around the person that it targets. But you go off shortly after you were all like huddled together in the shield.
Mhm.
So yeah, it uh really awkward timing on it, and they nerfed it. Um, Back on Thundering a little bit, Mr. Blackwell in chat is remarking that you could, in theory, get more than 5% out of this if you are playing around it with your cooldowns. And at the high level, that is correct. Uh, for a typical key, I think that is uh, just going to bait people into never pushing.
Yeah.
Like that's so people are already really bad at this. Actually, if you look at a typical pug DPS, and you look at their cooldown usage, and they dramatically undercast. Like you'll see them get like tons and tons of damage on 1 or 2 pulls because they hit their cooldowns on it. But then they'll have like under half of the cooldown cast that they could have had in the over the whole dungeon because they like refused to have suboptimal cooldown casts when they could have had more overall damage by like taking just like casting their cooldown as much. And I think
Yeah.
that's what is going to happen with Thundering is that's going to make that problem even worse of people being like, oh no, I can't use this. Like even though it's a big pull, it's a good pull, Thundering's not here. I can't use it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because you're just gonna generally just like from a pug perspective, just YOLO a lot of that stuff anyway, or like not sort of play around having it triggered at a certain point. So um yeah, I don't know how I feel about Thundering. I mean the couple I haven't played this version of it, I'll say. Um but it isn't too much different than the older version. It's not It's not a bad thing. Like, it's not a terrible affix. I think it's slightly annoying. Like, it'll always be more annoying because of the storm spawny circles. Um,
Yeah.
just and that's just in general in terms of like uh um like the way that the dungeons are set up. If it's restricted space wise, just don't have enough room to move around, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, there have been worse seasonal affixes, I think, than this, and so they've made a lot of good iterations on this to make it
Yeah.
not as
Yeah.
terrible, we'll say.
Yeah.
So,
I do
um,
think they also like they said that they wanted to get away from the affixes, seasonal affix being something that was like quite so overpowering in the way that this season's affix, like ending the key with plus 25% of whatever your best secondary is kind of a lot. Or the bonus from season 3 that was really strong. Um, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, it was Torghast powers in season 2, and that was actually really weak and awful. That was
I forgot about that actually.
yeah.
I just blocked that out of my mind. I forgot all about that. Yeah, we got some weird plus mana, like well, the healer one, like
Yeah.
yeah, just some weird plus mana.
The tank ones. Oh, there was one
Weird.
noteworthy tank power, right? There was the one that like gave you extra like 50% damage reduction for the first 4 seconds you were in combat. That was like
Hmm.
god tier for blood DK and protection paladin because it let you like get things and get resources and then push your defensives instead of like having to walk in with a cooldown already running. But
Yep.
yeah, that was bad. But then there was Prideful, right? Where like Prideful was so overpowering that like if you had Pride for a boss, you could kill it, and if you didn't have Pride for a boss, you couldn't kill it. And like that's the difference. Is like
Yeah, yeah. And then I mean, Prideful's that way in terms of like your damage output. And then you had what was the one where you killed mobs and had portals through the Shadow Realm in
that was
BFA?
in Nihilotha. Yeah,
Nyloth's one, yeah. And that one was essentially like route defining, right? Where like you ran a specific route because of those mobs. Which you couldn't do at any other point. So you like for that season, you essentially had to learn the new route, right?
yeah.
Which I think is to me, like I think that was a cool one. I don't know how they do that again without it just being the same thing, only instead of Nyalotha visions, it's like whatever bad
It's
guy visions.
dragons.
It's dragon visions, right? Like I don't know how they do that again, but it would be cool for another affix to come in that is more route and like doesn't make you stronger or more powerful, right? As you do the key, it just makes
Right.
your route slightly different, right? And you can
Well,
better optimize it or
and like
change it or something
they
like that.
try to do that with like if you look at the last 3 seasons of actually every seasonal effects in Shadowlands, there's like Prideful that impacted your routes because you had to hit the 20% thresholds at good places.
Oh yeah.
And then
Hmm.
there's the Torghast one, which kind of did, kind of didn't. You had to like kill the bosses. And so for the less linear dungeons, you had to like change your route to make sure in order
Yeah.
to not get some pretty bad stuff on the last boss. And then the one, they tried to, but you basically just ignored it for most people, and you just like killed the packs that are already in your way.
Yeah.
And then the this season, there's routes that people do that are like, we're just gonna pick up every dress, just gonna pull all.
Yeah.
And so like they do kind of change your routing, but they don't. What they don't do is give you a new tool for routing. You have the same tools for routing with all of those. You just
Mm-hmm.
have to change the route that you take using those. Whereas like the Nyalotha Affix gave you a new tool to route through the dungeon with. It was
Yeah.
accessible. Like I mean, kind of. If you were already playing triple rogue comps in Nyalotha,
Didn't change anything.
you didn't change anything. But if you weren't playing that many rogues, then it gave you this new tool like to everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. I think maybe that's why I like that one so much is that it was like a new tool you could use within the dungeon versus just a new thing that gave you more power, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I mean they're doing a ton of changes to the affix side, a ton still on sort of the dungeon tuning. I'm slightly concerned because we mentioned this, right? Like the dungeons just seem very, I wouldn't say they're difficult, but there is just a lot of damage that goes out. Like and in terms of just not having the throughput to keep people alive, like certain parts of a fight is like number one, really upsetting. It kind of sucks. But number two, it's like, what do we do differently here? Because we have to handle this damage like every 30 or every 45 seconds, and there's not enough
Yeah.
cooldowns to go through it. So I mean we'll see. Like I think a lot of it probably comes too from the fact that like just our scaling is a little weird with our
Right.
template characters. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
could be that.
And
But
then like stuff like broken talents.
yeah, which is I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna get this all done. I'm slay like the avoidance aura for monks is still broken. Like it
Yep.
just doesn't.
Yep.
It does not add 4% avoidance. It adds 4% more if you have avoidance,
Yep.
but it
It gives you
does
4%
not
more
add.
avoidance rating.
Yeah, it does not actually add 4% avoidance. So
Uh yeah.
it's annoying.
The other thing
Well,
on beta that we've got in the notes is on the work orders system finally being available
yes,
for
they
testing.
finally put it in.
Have you looked at this at all?
I did. So I messed around. I messed around a little bit on this.
Okay.
I guess I said I didn't log into beta. I did log into beta to sort of mess with this. It's I I don't know how much I'll use it. So I think if you are a person who enjoys crafting and who like wants to play that part of the economy, this is a very, very cool thing.
Right.
But like as a person, like so the way that I typically engage with any of my professions is like I take enchanting because I just want to be able to DE gear and make money throughout the entire expansion because I will
Right.
get a bunch of it.
Yep.
And I take alchemy because I want 2-hour flasks.
Yeah.
Nowadays, 2-hour flasks less of a concern, so I'll still have enchanting. But like for me, it's like I'll buy everything off the auction house reagent wise that I need, or like base reagents wise, and then
Yeah.
make it as I need. Like I don't need it. And if I need something else that's outside of that profession, I'll probably have somebody in my guild
Right.
and like send them mats to do that.
Right.
So for me, it doesn't really make sense to use this. And I think even like in a lot of cases, a lot of casual players probably don't interact with it that much. Um, but if you want to be a crafter and you want to like that's your thing in this game, like you're already playing the auction house, you're already sort of doing all that. It's actually super, super cool.
Right.
You
So
get to do a lot of or sorry.
quick recap for people that may not remember, because it's been a while since we talked about crafting stuff. But
Yeah.
this system is the thing where you can, as a buyer of some, item that gets crafted, you can put an order in for somebody to craft that. You can put it in as like a guild order or as an open order, and somebody makes it. You provide like the base materials for it, and then the crafter kind of like does the rest. So this kind of replaces the thing where you would try and use like fit in between spam and trade chat, like actual trade, and you
All the
would be
boosting
like,
services being
yeah,
advertised.
yeah, you would try and fit in there like, hey, I'm looking for somebody to craft this item for me, you know, basically replacing that. And as they are making, like, because they're making this is kind of necessary because of how they're making crafted stuff way more complicated. Like, imagine
Hmm.
trying to advertise, hey, I'm looking for somebody to make me a 5-star whatever chess piece with this and this bonus and these stats, and like it's
Yeah.
a lot to try and fit in a message.
Exactly. So yeah, so now you can basically like request that stuff, which is cool. Or the other side of it is a crafter, you can sort of post up the BOP items too. So that someone can go out and sort of buy them.
Right.
So um yeah, I mean it's a really, like I said, it's a really cool system. I think it's an interesting way as they make professions this expansion, I think a bit more complex, we'll say.
Yeah.
And a little bit, definitely they've gotten a huge, I think, upgrade in terms of what you do around them with the whole progression system now from a crafting perspective, and the fact that like everything has quality to it that is somewhat that part is somewhat annoying, by the way. The fact that even like regular reagents have qualities on them, and so it's like
Yeah.
it's just annoying to sort of manage all that from your bags. But in terms of work orders specifically, I think this is, like I said, I think it's a very cool system if you want to engage in this sort of crafting economy. Um, that being said, like I don't. I think you have to be one of have to be you have to want to be a part of that for this to like make a huge difference. And I think you
Yeah.
have to do a ton of, you want to make use of it. It sounds like just the way it looks is like you just have to advertise, because yeah, like in game,
There
like instead of like trade chat being like the gold spam or whatever, like you trying to say like, hey, I want to like I can enchant this stuff for you. It's more of like now like, okay, check my work orders because I have all these enchanting work orders up that you can grab.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think the idea is that now you don't have to touch trade chat at all for that. Like, the work order goes up and there's just people looking for that stuff, looking to make
Hmm.
a profit off of it. Um and then it just gets picked up and somebody does it. There
Hmm.
was, I don't know if this is still the case, but there was a cap on the number of work orders that a single person could fill,
Yep.
that a single crafter could fill. The kind of reason being that part of the goal for here is to like let other people into this part of the economy, like not just have it be the big like omni crafter people with like 8 characters on a single realm that all have maxed professions and just like single-handedly craft everything they could possibly need, you know.
Yeah.
Which like there's a place for that, but also if those are the only people that can use this system, then it's a failure of the system.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's just going to be the people who really engage with it are going to be those that really enjoy the crafting side of the game. I think if you're just looking to like get something made quickly and you have some mats lying around from like, I don't know if like the boxes are coming back, or I know mission table isn't coming back, but like nowadays, if you do mission table stuff and you get reagents for a profession you don't have the crafting profession for, they're essentially just items, or at this point just vendor items because
Yeah,
the
yeah.
nothing's worth any gold
I
anymore.
gotta I gotta
Um,
go and clear out my regent bank for the new expansion
yeah, that's what
because
I
I
was.
got a lot of Shadowlands stuff in there.
I was working. I forgot. The funny thing about reagents is I forgot all of the like the Zereth Mortis crafting stuff for like the mounts and pets and stuff. Like my
Yeah,
bank is full of them, and like
yeah.
I need to get rid of that. So, but no. So work orders are in. I mean, I would go ahead and test it out. It's actually, like I said, fairly well implemented. It makes sense, pretty easy to understand, and sort of post stuff that you want. Post stuff with like specific, optional, and you can like throw up your own optional reagents if you want something crafted, or put up a portion of the actual reagents if you want something crafted. And that way you get a little bit of a discount in what the person might charge you to fulfill it. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's in and it's working and it's sort of a new thing. So it's cool to see Blizzard sort of iterating on the profession side, because professions have been pretty stagnant for,
A long time.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, since when did they get rid of the crafting of like weapons? Was that TBC? Was there
You could get
Wrath?
there was the art. I remember Zinrock in Canada, right? You had the archaeology weapon. But that wasn't really
Right.
crafted weapons.
Yeah. I feel like it's been a very, very long time since like outside of like your raid consumables,
Yeah,
the like armor portion of crafting is like non-existent in
yeah.
the grand scheme of things. So
Like it's um that's I think going to be a very interesting thing of early Dragonflight is like people week 1 trying to get some ridiculous weapon crafted.
yeah, yeah.
Because that's everybody's biggest upgrade is their weapon. Somebody like I can already picture the people complaining like I can't get my best weapon crafted. Like shit, Sherlock. Week 1.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I think too, and as Azure Gauze mentioned this in the chat, is like it I believe it's gonna like crafted gear is gonna be a little bit more important. I can tell you my guild isn't going as far as I think as their guild is like creating spreadsheets about who is gonna go what profession and
Yeah.
leveling that up. But I think crafted gear definitely going to be used going into sort of mythic and heroic week to like fill in gearing holes.
Yeah.
Um, 'Cause it is pretty good if you can get it, high enough item level with
Yeah.
enough of the quality. So
And I mean I'm planning on doing like I'm not the Omnicrafter kind of person anymore. Like that's not really something that I there's a lot of tedium to that that I don't want to deal with.
yeah.
And so I'm not very interested in doing that anymore. I am interested in doing some crafting, right? The some crafter as opposed to the omni crafter, and so this is a fairly appealing thing to me. We're gonna see how it actually plays out. That was, I think,
Yeah.
my big complaint about or one of as a gameplay thing of ignoring all the economic issues with the legendary system in Shadowlands. The crafting, the gameplay of the legendary crafting was actually very tedious and boring.
Yeah. 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 No, I would agree. So, um, but cool, yeah, some upgrades there, like we said. I should probably check out professions a little bit more. I don't really know anything about them,
I
but
have done
so
almost no profession stuff. I actually looked a little bit at cooking, a little bit at
oh, okay.
cooking on the beta, um, but have not really seriously done any profession. There are other people in
Gotcha.
guild that have know a lot about it, and I'm gonna log in, you know, and figure it out as I go along.
Interesting. I know. I actually, that's an interesting point. This wasn't on our topics, but I did have this in the back of my mind about something we talk about. Have you done much Dragonflight, just like first week prep, like how you're gonna level, what you're gonna level, sort
All
of
right.
anything like that at this point,
So
or
there are people in my guild that are like, I have a route that is going to level me to level 70 in 4.5 hours. And meanwhile, I'm over here like, I'll see you guys on Wednesday or something. We have 3 weeks or something before the raid releases.
yeah,
Like
hey,
the expansion releases November 28th, right?
yep, that Monday,
And then the raid release is December 12th.
yep,
So we have 2 weeks. I don't raid
oof,
until the Friday. So I got an extra 3 days on there. So I got 2.5 weeks to be ready. And actually, as a bonus, because I raid on Friday, I don't have to worry about crafting gear or anything as much because I can
yeah,
spend that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday just doing keys.
exactly. You get lucky. Yeah, I mean, I also have not done much in the way of prep. Like, I don't have a route. The only thing I have done is I have done the initial opening quest experience about 3 or 4 times
Yeah,
up until you unlock dragon riding, and then have done the getting all the dragon riding things
yeah.
loop. I think twice at this point.
I have yet to actually successfully unlock dragon riding. Uh,
It's like 45 minutes, and it's honestly
I,
not that bad.
well, I got
Um,
there the first time that I did it, and it
yeah.
bugged.
Oh, nice,
And
nice.
so then I have not actually gone through that part of the quest experience. But yeah,
Yeah. It's the only reason I've been doing it is because I want to be able to get all of the dragon riding upgrades like within like basically 30 minutes and then go back to leveling.
yeah.
Because I think that'll be like a huge boost in terms of like your just general leveling speed is having like the full talent tree unlocked um, for the rest of the time. So plus it's like a nice like thing to do in the like
Yeah.
break up in the interim. So
I'm planning to be super casual for these 2 weeks. Like I'm gonna be like we're gonna be doing like weekly Mythic Zero clears for
mhm,
everybody. But beyond that, like I'm gonna be doing the dragon riding races, collecting the glyphs, doing some light crafting stuff to get that ready.
yeah,
Like I'm not taking it very seriously.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's funny. I was talking to some friends. This might be the first expansion in a while where like I don't take off a bunch of days with release.
right.
Like it's almost like it would almost be better to take off like maybe not launch day, but like the next week for a couple days to like take like the next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, and that way you can finish off any Mythic Zeros you need on Monday, and then
Yeah.
start Tuesday by sort of doing your world tour or
Or do
whatever.
the actual raid release week. It
Yeah,
is
and then get Mythic Pluses in.
then you get Mythic Plus in. Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
probably what I'm gonna end up doing is like I don't know if I'm actually gonna take the whole I'm probably not gonna take I'm probably gonna do like Thursday, Friday off or something.
Hmm.
Enough that we get through the like opening part of the world first race because my job. Um,
I'm like, how do you take off during the opening of Mythic?
um,
All hands on deck over
yeah,
there.
I mean it's usually not that bad. Or it hasn't. It was not for Sepulcher, right? Because I did
Yeah.
for uh Mythic. I guess actually it was Heroic Week. I took 2 days off or something like that.
Mhm.
Or maybe it was just the Friday. I think I took the Friday off. And I just like went and did keys and stuff with Gil. That was my Friday. And
Yeah.
like you can fit a lot of keys in a single day. So
Yes. Yes, you can if you have a group that's there with you, of course.
so that's probably what I do is like a day, maybe two
Hmm.
days. I don't think I'm doing the whole week. I know people who are all of they have all of like Tuesday through Friday that week off. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that is how you make me quit doing keys for 4 days.
Yeah. No, yeah, I would agree. So we'll see what if any time I take off. But yeah, I've also not done any sort of real prep, like other than that opening experience of like getting through the questing, which is honestly just you follow the main quest. It's super simple. Like you go to like three different areas, and then you land in where you learn dragon riding, and then it's to be fair, the hardest part is like the first like 10 or 15 glyphs you have to collect dragon riding wise because you have like no powers, and they're actually
Right.
kind of difficult to get to. So I've been sort of practicing that um, to get that a little bit better.
Yeah.
But you know, it's yeah, I was just wondering if you had done any crazy prep
Oh,
in terms of
I'm being chill. I'm being chill.
nice, nice. Yeah, we do have a ton of time. Um, so cool. I guess the only other final thing I had, and then we can sort of maybe we get done a little bit earlier. So I don't know. Was just on the fact that I finally got my raid portals this week. So
Nice.
excited. I'm literally now officially done with the expansion. Have all my mounts, have the raid portals, which are going to be useless in what, 4 weeks anyway, 3 weeks
Right.
anyway, but still cool to have.
Transmog farms.
Um, Actually, to be completely honest with you, I think I have every transmog item at this point. There's like maybe one or two like melee weapons I don't have, but um, yeah, we
Yeah.
haven't needed stuff in forever. So no, I finally did that, which is awesome because Sylvanas was the only sort of boss that had been eluding me.
Yeah.
Um, and we like two shot her, which was really nice with a buyer.
Nice.
I think we had a
Nice.
buyer with a buyer, yeah. So
I don't know if I'm gonna get portals. We talked about this a little bit before.
yeah,
I am main swapping back to monk. I was mage the whole
yeah.
season. Main swapping back to monk. I had all but 4 bosses done on my mage. Um, I have 0 mythic bosses on my monk. So I need full clears of all 3 instances in order to get it. I have a spreadsheet now with what bosses everybody needs for their portals. Not everybody cares, but um, like if we tried to get everybody portals, I would get portals because we just need like 7 out of 10 bosses in every instance to do them. And at that
Hmm.
point, like the 3 that we don't need are like the early stuff, right? It's
Yeah,
like we would need to do Remnant and Soul Render and Painsmith, but we wouldn't need to do the Eye or the 9 But in order to do Remnant and Soul Render, we need to do UI.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I would end up getting it if we do that. If we don't, then I won't get it, which will be disappointing. But you know,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I to be fair, I did the similar analysis for my team, and it was like basically we needed Painsmith and Sylvanas as like the most needed bosses for folks.
yeah, yeah,
And luckily for the Painsmith people, we sort of lucked out here. Is like one main swapped in the middle of the raid, and his main only needed one boss, so we basically just
just
brought
did
him
that.
his
Yeah,
main to
yeah,
Sylvanas. Two other people quit. One person doesn't care, and then the third person is the one that does care. He wasn't here though this week, but yeah, I think we have the just one person who needs, unfortunately, a fair amount of bosses across the instances.
yeah,
Um, but we might be able to get him
yeah.
his portals.
Fate Scribe is definitely the worst for us. We need we have like 7 people that don't have Fate Scribe, including me. Um,
Gotcha.
and then, but most other bosses, it's like 2 people. Uh,
Yeah.
like in Castle Nathria, there's only 2 bosses that, aside from me, people need. I guess 3. There's Denathrius, which we haven't killed yet.
Yeah.
And then Kel'Thas and Council of Blood. Each have 1 person.
Oh, the council.
Um,
Council actually isn't that bad when you have affixes. So
but yeah, it's I don't know if I'm getting mine.
oh, for council though, you just need to do the barrier strat. Wait for a barrier week.
Yeah,
Did you hear about that?
Yeah. Man. So somebody came into Warcraft Logs Discord asking about it because
really?
they got all their DPS got gray parses on it, doing it on heroic.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Because the way that it works is you only get damage credit for the boss that like actually dies. You don't get credit for the ones that heal up. But when you cleave down all 3 of them, it doesn't know what to do and it just picks one.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so funny.
and
So
so
I guess to actually explain what's happening.
the
'cause,
strat
like,
is that like you get
yeah.
them all down below the threshold that barrier kills them. You wait for a barrier, you purge it, and then it just kills all 3 at the same time, and the boss dies.
Yeah. Which is so fun. Which yeah, we were trying to see how that works. Does that mean I guess you go through 3 intermissions still, right?
No.
You get each boss to 50%. Oh, what? I thought at 50% they go to.
Oh
You
wait,
do an
maybe you're
intermission?
right. Maybe you're right. Maybe you spend. Huh. I
It's like
guess.
that was the idea. Is like I guess in terms of the
Well,
like you basically you shorten the time between intermissions. So you do your intermissions faster because just going each
right.
boss to 50, and then getting each low afterwards. So it's probably not as bad, but
Yeah.
it's still
It's
quicker. But yeah,
and then your dance debuff, the like stacking dot debuff,
yeah,
resets its stacks every time you do a dance. So that's how you like don't die to the dot.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
this does so the phase 3 mechanics for all 3 bosses add a lot to the fight. This
Mhm.
entirely skips it.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is fairly significant. That would
Does
actually
Warcraft
be
lot?
that would be a fun thing to actually do. That would actually be fun to do.
Yeah.
We didn't do
Yeah,
the Regolon like we are made of stars thing.
okay.
But we just didn't have people.
Yeah. I think we might have done it. I don't remember. I could check. I don't think we did though.
The other team
We're not an
in our guild
achievement.
did it. Yeah.
We're not achievement. Like we have one person in the guild that hunts every achievement he can and like
Yeah.
mounts and stuff. And like we probably didn't. I don't know if we did it for him or not.
But yeah, like that actually sounds like a fun thing to just like go in and mess around with. Is especially it's something that is not on the critical path for like getting mounts or anything. So if we just went in and screwed around with it and decided we didn't want to mess with it, we could just move on with our lives, right? We could just not clear it.
Yeah, or just like leave it to the end if you have time, and then
Right.
go in and sort of test it out. So yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Argo was saying something about it the other week, and I meant to bring it up here. So Well, that was interesting. Clever use of game mechanics for sure. But yeah, I mean at this point, my Shadowlands experience is done. Um, we should probably set up to do like a have we done a
We
retrospective
have not done a
episode?
retro. We need to do one.
Yeah. But
I think we do a little bit of retro over the next couple of weeks while we wait for uh the actual expansion to come out.
yeah.
I did like one more thing I wanted to talk about, which is related to finishing the expansion. I started the expansion as Night Fae on my monk.
Okay.
Switched to
That's very
Kyrian
cool.
for PvP because that was just better,
Hmm.
and stayed with it because it was technically also better for Brewmaster. Um, it wasn't enough better at that time to matter. It was later in the expansion, but at that time it wasn't better enough.
Hmm.
Um, there's a build for Brewmaster right now, the Triple Covenant build.
Ooh.
You in your spec tree, you pick up Bone Dust Brew and Weapons of Order,
Okay. Like it.
and then you play Night Fae.
Oh, okay. Get stomp.
Yeah. Um, and I might do that for raid tonight.
God, so gross.
And
Being
end
Night
the
Fae is so gross.
end the expansion with the covenant that I started with.
That's actually pretty awesome. There was a part of me that wanted to spec Night Fae for pre-patch for like half a second because it's the only covenant I have not been on my monk at all, and to be
Yeah.
completely honest with you, not really been on it in my alts either.
Yeah.
Even if Night Fae has been the best, like for like druid, it's been very good, and
Yeah.
even for my hunter, which is like I'm slowly leveling still, pretty good. I just don't want to be Night Fae. Um, like so at all. It's like one of those things where like I'm still pissed from Shadowlands beta when I'm trying to get through like the zone and do the stuff, and you Sarah these quests with you Sarah where you like have the egg and then she flies you back to the thing. She wouldn't fly me back, and I got stuck on like two different characters there. And I'm literally specifically leveling this character to test
Uh,
Venthyr, like because they didn't give us like max level pre-mades where you could just
right.
pick whatever covenant you wanted. And
Yeah.
like I'm so pissed. I bricked two characters at that point. I'm like, so at that point, I'm like, never being Night Fae.
Yeah.
And if this bricks my
Yeah.
character in live, I'm just quitting the game.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
but yeah,
funny.
no. And to be
Um,
completely honest with you, when they fixed it, you could go back to those brick characters and it would work eventually. But at that point, I was like, I'm done testing this.
yeah. Like,
So
so right now I am playing Necrolord, actually, not Kyrian, which
okay,
is the more common one, because my monk is undergeared and Fleshcraft is very good.
yeah,
But I'm actually not sure if I need it because we've got, like, we gained. I can have, so before I had to pick between like Bob and Weave and Dampen Harm. Now I can have
yeah,
not only both of those, Fort Brew on a much shorter cooldown, Diffuse Magic, Zen Med with the thing that makes it like actually usable as a defensive cooldown in most circumstances. So I'm not
yeah.
actually sure if I need Fleshcraft.
Plenty of other defensive options now.
Right.
Yeah,
And Nia for Night Fae, like in terms of soulbinds, Nia is the best soulbind in the
yeah.
for like if your spec likes mastery at all, Nia is the best soulbind in the
Yeah,
so I'm thinking about it. I'm really
that'd
thinking
be pretty
about it.
cool.
It would mean taking Tiger Palm off of my bar pretty much for pre-patch. Um because I put Rising Sun Kick in the spot on my bar where Tiger Palm was. Because you don't push it very much right now with the rotation being Shard Passions based.
Mhm.
Um and so Tiger Palm got moved to like less used key binding. And that's probably where I would put Feline Stomp.
Okay, okay,
Uh
okay.
because I'm running out of other places to put it.
That's hilarious. That's funny. Yeah, no, that'd be an interesting build to get all three. I'm wondering if, I mean, for Mistweaver, it's not a play at all. Although you can do some weird stuff because like Jade Bond, like the weird Mistweaver one right now is you can run Kyrian with Call to Arms plus Invoke, 1 minute Invoke, Chi. So like the 1 minute Celestial. And if you socket Jade Bond into your conduits, you can basically have like sub 30-second GGs or something
That's
ridiculous.
amazing. That's amazing.
Um, Particularly like with larger pulls and everything like that. Yeah, no, it's real good. It feels real fun. Because like Jade Bond, the conduit does still reduce the 1 minute GG, and then if you wear invokers as your legendary choice, you
Yeah.
get the full duration invokers.
Oh
So
no.
you technically can have, let's say, pretty high uptime on the invoker's haste because it'll trigger,
Yeah.
whenever you invoke. So
I am
uh,
actually speaking of invokes. I am not playing Invoke Niazao at all.
good.
I do not have it talented. I actually had to go and fix my soul mines to remove the walk with the Ox conduit because it does nothing now. Because I literally don't have the button.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and that is maybe technically wrong for Jailer and Zanathrius, but
Hmm.
I don't care. I am
Yeah,
done being beholden to uh, Invoke Niazao's janky like interactions, like
yeah.
damage from damage taken stuff. I yeah.
Yeah, I will say that's been the fun part about pre-patch is sort of finding these weird little things that aren't going to be around for like another 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're just generally broken. Like the fun thing too is that like I think the Call to Arms invoke doesn't proc enveloping breath anymore. So that's sort of an issue in terms of the overall healing, but it
Yeah.
still does trigger like the Jade Bond cooldown reduction. Sorry. So yeah, it's this is my favorite time of any game is like this pre-patch stuff because you generally are like extremely overpowered in terms of the older content, and then there's just weird like overlaps of like abilities and
Yeah.
like new stuff.
Yeah.
And it's probably just bigger now because like we got the talent trees and
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that's in the talent tree comes from the current Shadowlands system. So
Yeah.
you can technically have essentially more talent points than you would have at 70, right? Once we get to level up. So
Yeah.
um
It's
been fun.
yeah. Yeah. So Azurgo is asking if I play triple DPS, where am I going to put all my buttons? Because there's so many active buttons. Um,
Yeah.
and the answer is everywhere. There's a lot of them. Um, but it's also like, okay, don't take Chi Wave or Cheapers, basically. If you're playing Brewmaster, just don't take them. They're not worth the button. You're gonna lose DPS trying to push them. Like in practice, maybe they end up in like a top simming build. I would be a little bit surprised actually if they do, but maybe they do. In practice, I think it's always a mistake right now to take them because there are so many other buttons. They're just significantly better.
Yeah.
The only other button really that you can like, I'm not taking explosive keg. That's another one that is it's just super point expensive to take. You have to take invoke knees out, then 2 points in another talent, and then you can take floating keg. So I'm not taking that one at all right now. I don't have invoke knees out right now. I am playing Rushing Jade Wind, but that's another one that you can drop. So I actually like in the process of putting this together, I am dropping other abilities that some people are taking right now, like Exploding Keg, and Invoke Nizao, because I just don't want to play with Nizao right now. And that cuts off. I can't take.
Yeah.
There's there's another build that I thought about, and that I might play if my like HP and rate is spooky. You can so there was the defensive legendary for Brewmaster that people were playing last season in Mythic Plus, the Mighty Poor one that is very good, but not as good as Storm Stout's Last Keg for most situations. But you can path all the way down to Storm Stout's Last Keg in the talent tree, take that, and then play the Mighty Poor legendary instead. Which
Oh,
is another
okay.
option.
Interesting.
So then
Yeah.
you can play those. That combination, you don't get to pick another capstone. You don't get another covenant ability there, but you can just play Kyrian. You can just play Kyrian and play Mighty Poor and do it that way. That's I think
Hmm.
fairly valid. Um, so like there are definitely a few like weirdo things where you can take existing borrowed power and combine them with the talents and like do things that wouldn't normally makes sense. Nothing as
Yeah.
broken as the 30-second Chi-G's that give you 30 seconds of Invoker's Delight haste or whatever,
Yeah,
or
it's
15
so
seconds or whatever it
ridiculous.
is.
Yeah.
Nothing quite that good.
No, it's that's been like the one sort of that's what I've ran all raid this week, which was fun, except for the fact that I played it terribly because my raid frames were just like I didn't know who needed to be healed or like where anything was or who had
But
debuffs or
excuse me, Anomoly, you're playing a Mistweaver, you turn off your raid frames.
no. So now I need my raid frames again. So that's the thing is like
Do you though?
in it's completely honest with you in Shadowlands or no in sorry in Dragonflight I will because I need to actually cast spells on people. I know it sucks. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be lost completely.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, it's um it'll be yeah, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting pre-patch. It's been fun just to all the broken stuff that we've got. So um but yeah.
All
Um
right.
well cool. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to cover,
I think
but
this is gonna be I think this is it for the show today. Um yeah, I've got more dungeons to grind before raid tonight to try and finish catching up on gear. I'm gonna go and do that.
nice.
But thank you all for watching and or listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and you want to support it and the other work that we do over on the Peak of Serenity, you can do that over at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And of course, come and join the Discord. That is the best place to be for all the latest information for the pre-patch and beyond. I know the Mistweaver like resources stuff has all been updated. The Brewmaster stuff is lagging a little bit behind.
So just I'll caveat that only one of the posts has been updated. So we
Okay.
basically built a specific pre-patch post
Yeah.
that sort of gave a high level everything for pre-patch. So that'll be where you
Yeah.
want to go if you want a quick refresher. Everything else though is like we'll get to it.
Yeah.
We're not as
Yeah.
far ahead as you think we are.
Yeah. All right. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah. That is gonna be it for the show today. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.